So, welcome to the kitchen. Today I am so pleased to be able to cook with you to make this spicy curried kale and quinoa stir fry. It is actually one of the dishes that I am using in my next program, which is called Reset Your Diet and Get Back into Those Skinny Jeans. It starts the end of January 31st. I'll be cooking just like I am here with you all for a week's worth of meals. So prepping and making. So I hope you can join me. The information is in the comment section. But just to give you an idea of what it'll be like, I'm just going to cook one dish with you right now. So let's get started, shall we? Good. All right, so this dish is especially nice because it is can be a lunch, could be a light dinner. It has two types of protein, which I mentioned, one of which is plant-based, which is quinoa. The other is animal-based, and it's egg. So I did do a little pre-cooking here. What I did was I cooked up some of my quinoa already. So quinoa, great source of fiber as well, is easy to make, very similar to, say, rice, where you steam it. Just reaching over here for some of my notes. But one of the things about quinoa, which is good to know, is it has something on the surface called saponins that are used as a defense mechanism for the plant. But we don't want the saponins because it tastes soapy. If you've ever had quinoa and it tastes soapy, it's because it hasn't been rinsed. Sometimes a company will pre-rinse the quinoa, but what I like to do is take a strainer and just rinse it through, or let it actually sit and soak in the water for a few minutes before cooking. Similar to rice, it's 2 to 1, 2 parts liquid to 1 part quinoa. So I made up a little bit of the quinoa ahead of time, and I'll show you what it looks like in case you're not familiar. But like rice, you want to leave the lid on so that it steams. You don't interrupt the cooking. And then when you're done, you just want to take a fork and just fluff up the grains, just like that. So I have pre-made this. It takes about 15-20 minutes to cook. I'm just going to set that aside for a moment so we can get on to the next part of our meal. So what we want to do now is we want to cook up the egg. I'm going to cook up the egg separately. I have a skillet here. I'm just going to heat it up a little bit. I always like to, here, let me see if I can tilt this down so you can see a little bit more about what's going on down here. There we go. So what I like to do is I like to put I have a secondary skillet here so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to scramble up some eggs. Very simple. Just crack 2 eggs, and I'm just going to whisk them up. If you like, you can add a little bit of water to this to thin it out a little bit. But I think it's doing well as it is. I'm going to add a little bit of oil, some olive oil to my saute pan here. See if it's gotten hot yet. No, it needs a few more minutes. I'm going to let that heat up. While that's heating up, let's move on and just prep our next ingredients. So what I would like to do is I'm going to use 1 bell pepper. In this case, it's an orange. It adds a nice color to the dish. Also adds a lot of vitamin C. Very good for our immune system. We like that this time of year. And I'm also going to add in some scallions. So this is the way I store my vegetables in the refrigerator. I usually have a plastic bag from the grocery store. I reuse them. And then what I will do is wash the greens when I get home. And I have these bags that I can either wrap around them or put them in to help maintain some of the moisture. So I'm going to, for this dish, I'm going to use three scallions. And I'm going to remove the outer leaves that tend to be a little bit faded. Grab a knife. And I'm going to chop my scallions. Let's see if I can get you to see what's going on here. Again, some technical difficulties, right? Always something. Okay. And I'm back. So, my skillet is getting heated up here. I'm just swishing around some of that olive oil. I'm going to turn it down a little bit lower. And I'm going to add in my egg. As much of that in my skillet as possible. All right. Set that aside. And while that is starting to cook, let me grab a spatula. I like to use bamboo. You don't want to use anything metal in a non-stick skillet. I usually try to avoid the non-stick skillets, but with scrambled eggs, it's kind of nice to have that. So while that is just starting, where the eggs are just starting to cook, I am going to just slice up some of my scallions here, leaving out the really more mature, heavier stems or leaves, these parts here that are on the bottom. All right, let's see, our egg is just starting to set. I'm going to give it a minute to do a little bit more, and while that's happening, I am going to cut my pepper, give that a good chop. So what I like to do when I do my peppers is I cut off the top, take out the seeds, and cut the bottom. So I have something that looks like this. You can see through it. And what I will do is, let me just move my scallions to the side so I have a little bit more room to maneuver here. So then what I like to do is cut this like so and cut it into strips. And I'm going to make these into a nice smaller dice. Maybe about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch square. So what I like to do, well, is have little matchsticks like this. And I'm going to repeat the process for the other half. So I have a bunch of uniform matchsticks. Off the white parts out of there. All right, let me give my scrambled eggs a little bit of a stir here. Smells good. The eggs to be in small pieces because I'm going to eventually mix it back in with the finished dish. I probably could have let this cook a little bit less time so that the pieces would have been smaller. It smells real good. All right, I'm going to put this to the side, and in the meantime, I'm going to get another skillet. Normally I would have just wiped that other skillet out and reused it. This way I can just move on with the cooking session. When I do this program, I do everything in real time. So there's no skimping, there's no prepping and whatnot. I just did this for our time today so that we could get done within the 20 minutes that I usually do things. So I now have my diced peppers, as you can see. I'm also going to take those end pieces that I cut off, and I'm going to finely chop those as well. So they're all a uniform shape and size. All right. So I now have my skillet back on top and heating up. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to add in these veggies that I just chopped up. You can hear that it is sizzling. I'm hoping that the sound is okay. Just realized I had my microphone standing off to the side. Apologize for that. But here we have our scallions. And I'm just going to saute those for a few minutes. Show you what that looks like. All right. All righty. Now, while this is sauteing, what I'm going to do is take a clove of garlic. I want to get a nice sized clove. If you don't have a big one, you can take 2 smaller ones. This one's a pretty good size. And this is the way I like to do my garlic. I'll just put it on my board. I haven't even, the paper is still around it. But I just smash it. And the paper will come right off. So easy to do. Put that to the side. And then I'll just come across and finely chop it. Like so. A piece of paper in there. All right. So you can see how I've got it chopped there. This is coming along really nicely now. The peppers are just about getting soft. The onions could maybe take another half minute. We'll let that go. And while we are waiting on that, let's see, I'm going to add in the garlic. Let that start. And I'm going to grab my kale. So I have about a bunch of kale here, maybe a little bit less, but a bunch of kale would be fine. What I don't want are these huge stems in the dish, so I'm just going to, what I like to say, unzip the stems from the leaf. And I'm going to save those stems for a later dish or put it in when I'm making stock. I'm going to turn this down so it doesn't burn while I'm chopping up my spinach. I'm going to stir this around now. I kept the garlic to the side so it wouldn't burn. So I just stirred it into the dish right now. I can really smell that wonderful garlic cooking. And I'm going to take my leaves and I'm just going to slice them in thin ribbons to begin with. Just like that. All right. Kale, also really healthy for us. Rich in vitamins and minerals. It's very rich in folate, which is a vitamin B. Vitamin K, which is good for the blood, good for the bones. Now, I'm going to go crosswise and just give it another chop so that instead of ribbons, it's just small pieces. All right. This is looking good. Just show you what we've got here. All right. And I'm going to add my kale into that mixture. Okay. And then we're going to do a little seasoning. And what I want to do, let me just let this wilt for a few minutes. So with this dish, we're going to get a lot of color. Color is always good because color indicates the healthy nutrients that the vegetables contain. Color is an indication of antioxidants, which help keep us healthy. Actually, they're anti-aging. They help protect us from disease. All good. So my motto is to eat the rainbow, which is to get in as many different colors as possible in your foods. If we're talking about vegetables and fruits, not Skittles and M&Ms. And vary things. So for instance, if, you know, I didn't have the orange bell pepper, a yellow bell pepper or red bell pepper would have been a good substitute. Or you could do a combination of a few of those in the dish. Each one has its own nutrients, its own antioxidant and phytonutrient that helps a different part of the body. So different colors target different spots in our bodies. All right. So we're almost done. You can see my kale is starting to wilt. Still a nice bright green. I want it to cook a little bit longer. Have that go. And while we're waiting for that to heat up, I'm going to add my seasoning. So I'm going to add in about, between 2 teaspoons and a tablespoon. So it's about 2/3 of a table. 2 teaspoons is about 2/3 of a tablespoon. So I did, a scant tablespoon in there. I can always add more if I want to get some more flavor, and I do like curry, so that might be a possibility. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of tamari. Now, the tamari I'm using is reduced sodium. It is gluten-free because it has no wheat in it. Soy sauce actually has wheat in it. Tamari tastes very similar to soy sauce, but just without the wheat in it. And that will add the salty flavor to our dish. So I don't need to add salt to this dish. Well, that curry's smelling good. I want to kind of toast those spices as I'm cooking here. To kind of mellow the flavors a little bit and blend them. So I added my tamari, I added my curry. I'm going to add some chili flakes, just a few. I would say, less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. I'm not a very should I say, I was going to say I'm not a very spicy eater, but I don't like foods that are very spicy. I may be a spicy eater. All right. Very good. All right. So now we have our vegetables prepared. And I'm just going to add in my quinoa that I made. Now, this is about a third of a cup of dry quinoa that I cooked up. And it comes out to about a cup when it's done cooking. I'm just going to add that, mix that all in together. Yum. All right. And then I'm going to go back. So this is now vegetarian version right here. We have our quinoa, which is our full protein. And we've got rich fibers. Fiber is great for our health as well. It helps rid toxins from the body. Quinoa is very rich in fiber, as is the kale has some fiber in it as well, but quinoa is really our star with the fiber here. I'm going to add in my egg. And the egg just adds such a pretty look to it. Let me just wipe down my chopping block here, cutting board a little bit. Clean that off. And let me get a bowl. Let's see. We can transfer that in to our serving bowl, just so you can get to see how it looks. And it's all done. And just to finish it up, grab my towel here and just clean up our plate a little bit. I'm going to top it with some sliced almonds. And voila, there you have it. This is our finished dish. It is good for a dinner. It's good for a lunch. Might even be good for a snack. Whichever time of the day you want to eat it, it is healthy for you because of all of the protein, the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, and those antioxidants and phytochemicals that I was telling you about. So I hope you enjoy this dish. If you would like, please join us for our program on January 31st, where we'll be cooking like this, but even better yet, you will have the ingredients, you will have the finished product, and you will get to enjoy them all on your own for the entire week. So hope to see you then. The information again is in the comments section. Nancy, thank you so much for showing up. And thank you for telling me about the volume. Sorry about that. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.